This is my Ninja 250. It's a 2008 model, which is the latest generation of the Ninja 250. And I have never been happy with the throttle throw. The throw of it, there's a lot of turn in it. I'd say probably a good 120 degrees or more. And that's just way too long for a bike of this size. There's no way that full throttle on this bike is going to put you into a disaster or an accident. It's just doesn't make that much horsepower. It doesn't wind up very quickly. So I'm going to put a throttle on here that has a shorter throw. So it'll be a whole lot easier to ride this thing and require a lot less flick of the wrist. And it should also make the bike feel like it's a little peppier because it'll give a faster throttle response. So we're going to change that out. Now before you start this project, you're going to want to have a Phillips head screwdriver. You're going to want to have a hammer, an impact driver with a Phillips head tip on the end of it, and a piece of plastic about 1.5 millimeters thick, 6 millimeters wide, and about 3 3/4 inches long. And that's going to be important, and we'll show you what that comes up to. So the first thing we're going to start doing is we're going to put on our safety glasses. Safety glasses are very important. Make sure you wear them. And then we're going to take the impact driver and we're going to put that right into the bar end just like so. Now that we've got that set up, what you need is you need both hands. One hand is going to take this, push it in, and twist it to the left just like you're unscrewing. But once you get that thing solid and it's not turning anymore, you keep that pressure and that force on there. And then you come up and you hit this end with a hammer. And not freakishly hard, because you don't want to accidentally punch yourself in the knuckles or hit your thumb or something, but you hit it just hard enough. And if you get it right, that screw will just slowly start to turn until the point where it should come free. Now because this is red Loctite, this is going to be a pain in the ass, so it'll probably require a couple of hits.
Don't touch that.
We hit it with the hammer a whole bunch of times, and we got this thing nice and loose where we can unscrew it. So we're going to remove the Phillips head screw from the end on here, and we're going to remove the bar end. And the bar end is free. So put this someplace where you're not going to lose it. Next we need to get to the right side switch, and we need to take the screws out of it. And I believe there's two. You got one here. I can only get the screwdriver into it. There it is. And then I believe there's one on the bottom also. So take these, loosen them up. Be careful you don't accidentally drop them. If they fall down inside your fairing somewhere and get stuck, you're going to be cursing and you're going to be a little bit upset. So make sure that you're really, really careful about pulling those out of there. Once you get those two screws out the back, this switch will open up like a clamshell. There's two halves to it. The front half will come forward and the bottom half will fall back. And you'll find that you'll probably drop it, just like I did. Put that in a safe place. Okay, you'll see the two throttle cables are on there. One's a push cable and one's a pull cable. And why you would be pushing with a cable, it's actually a reverse pull cable. And the reason for it to be two of them in there, so that way is if your throttle gets stuck, you have the ability to twist the throttle forwards to close it back up. So that's what the push cable does. So we're going to gently pull these little cables out of their little housings, just like this, and pop them out. And there is the throttle. We've got the throttle tube out of there, and we've got the grip pulled back just like it's a condom. Rolled back just a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap that plastic right around the outside here, all the way around. That little plastic strip that I showed you earlier. For those of you that say, well, why don't you just switch over to an R6 throttle tube? And the reason why is because the R6 throttle tube and the Ninja 250 throttle tube are actually identical in outside diameter. So don't bother. I roughed up the surface here just a little bit with some emery paper. You can use a piece of sandpaper or a light file just to make it a little bit rough. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put some glue along that, a little bit of crazy glue. And we'll come back to that in just a second. But after that, wash it off. Make sure you get all the grease off of it, that there's no dirt left on or any debris that is going to get in the way of the glue. Next, you want to take that little plastic strip that you've got and form it into a ring. And I've been squeezing this gently, wrapping it around the inside of a socket from out of my toolbox. And I got a ring that's a little bit smaller in diameter than the throttle tube end. And the reason for that is because it'll fit over it nice and snugly. Now you see there's a little gap around it, but we're going to take care of that because we're going to put a little bit of crazy glue in there. And we're going to squeeze it tight and just wait for it to bond. Instant crazy. I swear I knew a woman like that. So anyways, we got this throttle tube all set up. We've got the nice piece of plastic all put around the outside there, and the crazy glue is drying on it right now. And that will solidify. We're going to give it, I don't know, probably 15 to 30 minutes, just to make sure that it sets up properly. I know they say that it bonds instantly and everything else, but this is going to be given just a little bit more time. And we'll make sure that it gets nice and solid, that the thing's not going to come apart and make a mess. So we've got the piece of plastic stretched around the throttle tube. It's been glued on with some crazy glue. So we're waiting for that to set up and dry. Once it gets nice and hard, which we figure about 15 to 30 minutes, it'll be ready to go. And we'll start reassembling the bike at that point. We just let the glue set up. It's all ready to rock and roll. It's nice and solid now. So now we need to start putting the cables back into the throttle tube assembly. We've got two throttle cables here. We got a short one and a long one. The short one is going to be the pull cable and typically wraps up the front of the handlebar because you want it to pull upwards, and it will do that when you turn the handlebar back, just like that. So it's going to pull that one back. Whereas the other long one is the push cable, and will revert the throttle back to the idle position in the event that it gets stuck and you need to force it back. So what we're going to do is we've got to find the two cable guys under here, and we need to pull them up to where they need to be. It required a little bit of finagling to get it in there. The push cable is on the back side, the pull cable is on the front side. It goes through the channel, and I've got them set up through the switch enclosure, switch housing, and I'm ready to put the back of it on now. So here's the back, and this is going to be just gently pushed through here and clasped into place. And you'll know once you get it straight because it'll just click into place and it'll close up the shell. And then once you've got that to where it needs to be, you need to start putting the screws back in. We're tightening up the last screw in the enclosure housing. Sometimes when you put a short throw throttle tube in there, you have to go ahead and change your tension on the throttle cables, both push and pull. Mine were a little bit loose and were due to be snugged up anyway, so that actually worked out. But I'm going to check those next. But I'm not going to film that because I can't get the camera down in there to see in the little hole while I use both hands to try to tighten the thing up. But this works good. We're going to go ahead and put the bar end back on now. And it's real simple. If you remember how we took it off, it's exactly the reverse procedure. So we got the bar in there. We're going to take the impact driver, and we're going to go ahead and tighten him right back into where he needs to go. And then once you get it tight, we're going to bop it on the end again with the hammer while we're using the right hand this time to twist it to the right while pushing in on it.
Put it down!
One more thing to observe that I thought I would mention is that when you work with the throttle assembly up here, sometimes after you put everything back together, it doesn't turn freely again. In my case, it did. But sometimes the rubber grip will bind up against the switch, or it'll bind up against the bar end. So watch out for that to make sure that it's not sticking against one of those two. So if everything worked before you had it completely reassembled, and afterwards it did not, that's probably what's happening. It's rubbing on one of these two sides, so watch out for that. But we're still good. We're good to go. I checked the throttle linkage and made sure that the throttle cables are adjusted the way they should be, and this thing's ready to ride.